Korea is wonderful this way. It has roots in Confucianism,
Yeah.
of respect for elders and for seniors. Annyeonghaseyo, this is Mark Peterson with the Frog Outside the Well Research Center. We're back again with my favorite interviewee. You're my favorite now.
Okay, all right. Until tomorrow, or it's another day. Yeah.
Well, as you know, I like to interview people because people bring a lot out of me, which is good, which we like to see. But this is Sam Richards, who is an incredible teacher and is very, very popular in Korea through the modern innovation of YouTube, which brings us together today. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, nice to see you. Nice to be here. So I have a couple questions for you.
Oh, great. Okay.
You know, one of the things for me, we're both older men. You're my elder here.
By a few years, maybe.
By a few years. Well, I'm 63. The Koreans sometimes don't realize I'm 63, but I am.
I got 14 years on you.
Yeah. Which is pretty amazing, actually. Your mind is so agile and active. And I think one of the things about me in Korea, both of us really, is that Koreans respect
Oh, yeah.
elders.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'm wondering, I think about just myself and whether I could have had the experience, whether Koreans would respect me in the same way if I was in my 30s or 40s.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's age and white hair.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
No.
I earned this white hair, by the way.
That's right. I did too. I earned my own. But no, Korea is wonderful this way. It has roots in Confucianism,
Yeah.
of respect for elders and for seniors. In America, when you get to a certain age, you're an old guy
Yeah.
and dismissed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're no longer valuable
Yeah.
in society. But in Korea, the older you get until you really top out, there is a topping out in Korea
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
you know, somebody is beyond, the usual respect. But no, and the older you get, the more respect you get. And that's a marvelous thing because, you know, you do learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a lot smarter guy now than I was 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people in Korea know that and understand that. So, no, I'm happier here in Korea
Because of that.
because of that.
You must just feel more grounded here in a way.
For sure.
And like you stand up straighter, you walk straighter, you just feel more
Yeah, and
better.
you feel better because people have a good idea of you just because of your age. And
Isn't
nothing
that
else.
amazing?
It really is. Yeah.
And so for me, that this would not be the case. Well, my students respect me, and people respect me. I mean, not just my students, but other people from around the world watch my videos, and there's a respect there. But I know that I have the feeling that as a YouTuber, I could not take off in the U.S. in the way that I have taken off,
In
say,
Korea.
there in Korea.
Yeah.
If I were back in my 30s in the U.S., that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Maybe my early 40s, but not at this age. It's not. I mean, you see TikTok. A lot of people on TikTok are our age,
Yeah.
and they get a lot of views, and they're doing but they really stand out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. It's an amazing thing, and Korea does respect age, and it's a great place to be in
Yeah,
Korea when
yeah.
you are gray-haired. And
Well,
older.
that's pretty cool because I feel like maybe in a way that I entered Korea, or Korea first met me
at the right time.
at the right time when my hair was gray and I was already worthy of or in a place where I would be the respected academic
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a way.
Well, and of course, your work stands on its own. But I wonder if you'd have been 27 doing these things. I wonder if it would have caught on.
I have a feeling not. You know, and as you say, you're so much smarter now, and I'm so much smarter than I am than I. Well, hang on, I'm not sure. I don't know how much intellect or wisdom I have at all, truthfully. Isn't it? You have that. The older you get, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah,
You
the
really-
more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
and the
Yeah.
more humble you are. And strangely, there's that syndrome.
Yeah.
We probably both experienced it.
And you're frightened when you say something that comes across as pontification,
Yeah.
and people believe it, and you say, "Oh no, wait a minute, that's just my opinion. Don't go off believing that."
Yeah. Well, now see, this is the thing with me.
You're-
I know just enough about many things that I can ask some questions and say something that is interesting. Would be interesting to a room of 800 students.
Mm-hmm.
So I know there's always something I'm going to pick out, but man, if you ask me to go too far beneath the surface, now I'm out of my league. I'm so many things. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be, Confucianism or Hinduism or
But you have such a
Islam.
great skill of, as you talk about things, you have this pullback phrase that you use all the time, and you say, as a sociologist.
Yeah.
Which is saying, you're humbly saying, as I skimming across the surface, but what you are really saying is, as a sociologist, I'm digging pretty deep on this.
Yeah.
When you say that, that's the way I read it.
I will say, actually, as a sociologist, I'm scrambling on the surface more, not digging deep so much, but I'm going to scramble some things around, and I'm going to see what I see. And at my age, I trust that I'm going to see something.
Mm-hmm.
So you must have that with Korea, right? Is there anything about Korean culture that you, at your age, have not thought about?
Everything. This place drives me nuts.
Okay, here, I want to hear this.
I am
wanna
the
hear
most
this.
pathetic scholar in the world because I've worked for 58 years to learn this crazy place and to understand its foibles and its in and outs and how it works. And as soon as I think I figured it out, it goes and changes. It changes on everything. When I first came here, large families were the rule. 6-8 kids is a wonderful thing. Within 10 years, 2 kids, that's it, no more. Maybe 1, 2 at the most. And the country flipped completely on it. Now, and the 2 kids, 1 had to be a son.
Yeah.
Now, hey, but daughters are much better. When you get older, your daughter's going to take care of you better than your daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
So it's better to have daughters. So the guy that's got 2 daughters, he's the guy that's proud now because more proud than the guy that used to have 2 sons.
Yeah.
And then now, the thing is, the population issue has been so controlling, materialism has become so large here that people say, oh, raising children is so expensive, it's so difficult, and the competition is so difficult. Let's just not get married. Let's just not have kids. So look at that revolution that's taking place.
Yeah.
Now, if I were going around pontificating about the Korea I knew in 1965, I'd be saying, yeah, Korea's a place with big families. Look how far out to lunch I came.
Yeah, that's right. But see, this is your intellect. This is your wisdom, and you clearly okay. As a fellow American, I can size up your personality and who you are, and as a fellow academic, I can size you up pretty quickly. And you know this, right? There are lots of different academics and different Americans.
Different kinds of bookworms.
Different
and
kinds
whatever.
of people, and I can size you up. What Koreans wouldn't know about you is that you're also a unique American in your humility and in your ability to question and admit and say, as an academic, that I really don't know anything. And that's not that. The smartest academics, as you know, the most intellectually advanced academics who I've ever met are the ones who just throw their hands up in the air constantly.
I'm still trying, but I don't get it.
Yeah, and and so I'm going to go back to what I said about you. But there's nothing about Korea that you haven't thought about. Maybe not understand, but you haven't thought about. And you think about it like kind of a rubber band almost, or like a balloon. You sort of squeeze it here and it pops out there.
Yeah.
And so you're
Because things interact with each other in different ways.
and you're always looking for the answers, right?
Yeah.
The truth. So you're kind of in Korea, but it's a frustrating place in that way because it does change and it has changed. And you, just when you think you start to understand something, this is me in my small universe.
Yeah.
I think I'm understanding this, and then I realize no, that's not.
I realized how out of touch I am when I went to a folk village with some friends one time. And I've lived in folk villages. I've lived in Old Hanok villages where the old house where you sleep on the floor and all this. I've been in these places, but I was at a place one time and the father was telling his kids, "This is the way your grandparents lived years ago." And I said, "That's the way I lived a few years ago." Yeah. You know, one of the best things I've done over here is I brought students over. 7 years, 7 summers, I brought students over, and we stayed in Hanok situations. The first 2 years was in a real village, living, breathing, honest to goodness, old village that had been, people had moved off because they're upwardly mobile people were empty houses, literally. And so we took over a couple of these houses my first 2 years. The next time, 4 years later, was in a reconstituted village at Yeongnam University. They've got a large tract of land in the back, and nearby there was a dam, the Andon Dam, and the reservoir flooded a bunch of what would have been nice old houses. They moved them to Yeongnam University and created a village there. I took my students there one year, and then I've taken them to Inhe, where there's a new Hanok village. And when I did this from 99 to about 2011 or so, 2013 maybe, these were unique places. Now they're all over the place. Have you been taken to a Hanok village
No,
yet?
I haven't. But so you mean they're all over the place for tourists?
Koreans more.
Yeah.
Tourists use them somewhat, but Koreans use them as, they're all in these high-rise apartments.
Yeah, I got it.
And Grandpa used to live in this house that was like this, and you sleep on the floor and all of this. And these places have cropped up all over the place now. And it's more for Korean internal tourism than for outside tourism.
Yeah, we did take our students. I didn't go, but my colleague Ben Park, he's Korean, came to the U.S. for his undergrad degree and now teaches at Penn State. I brought students last May with him and my wife, Lori, and he took them to the Korean folk village here outside of Seoul.
Yeah.
And I didn't go, but it's just so just that.
Have you stayed in a Buddhist temple?
No, he's planning to do that on this trip. Yeah, to spend.
You should do that sometime.
Yeah.
It's easy to arrange, and your friend Ben or any number of other people could take you to a Buddhist temple. That's really a fun experience. It's really been a pleasure talking to you, Sam.
It's been an honor, and when you reached out to me and said that you were here, I really wanted to get together and do something.
When I heard you were here, I thought, "Oh, you're kidding! Oh, I'd love to."
Yeah.
We've been talking about doing a Zoom thing together.
Yeah.
But that distance
It's
of
not
Zoom
the
is not the
same.
same.
Yeah, it's
Just
not
to
the
be
same.
together.
So this is awesome.
So this has been great. So it's been great. We'll see you next time.